Pat Mayo Hour.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Hour, UFC Houston, same site as the Super Bowl. DraftKings picks, previews. The pricing came out a bit early, so we were able to squeeze this show in before I take off for my bachelor party. Hey!
Pat Mayo going to Arizona for the bachelor party.
Boom, boom.
But because we're 2-0 on cash games to start the year, you couldn't leave the fans. We had to squeeze one in.
It's
right?
true. If you had lost last week, this is Cody Saftic, by the way, sitting across from me, host of the Bookie Beatdown. If we had lost last week, probably wouldn't have done the show.
Yeah, why not? Why not give it that gap? I was even thinking, why force it when we're on a roll? But it's like, you got to keep the good times rolling here, baby.
Of course, but you don't love this card, and most of the thing that I saw when the pricing first came out from a lot of the DFS MMA writers that I follow I hate this pricing. There's too many losers on this card.
That's exactly what I thought to myself. Every single card you're looking at, who are the cheap plays that I can take a poke on, right? And if those $7,400 value players can score you a decent amount, then you're sitting pretty. Last week, what it really proved, especially on the cash game team, with Jeremy Kimball scoring 2.5 points.
You talked up Jeremy Kimball.
I did.
You were taking heat, too. Was it the first fight of the night? Is that why?
No, it was the first fight that we had a player active in. So we had 0 points at that point, and now you're one fight in, you have 2.5 points. Everybody else might have as many as four fighters that had fought by that point.
Letting people know that despite the 2.5 points on both the GPP and the cash lineup, both cashed very highly.
Yeah, both were totally fun, and I think that's the big lesson that you can learn out of it, especially on a cash game team. If you have a player score virtually nothing, but you have 5 more players that can score big, then you are fine. You can still get the points. You can still get through. So you don't have to panic and be like, oh, no, one of my players lost. That being said, you never really want someone to score the big
obviously,
zero.
you don't want that, but if anyone's going to score 2.5 points on your team, the scrub guy on your team is probably the best way to go about it.
Exactly. So once again, now you look at it this week. And this week, when you're looking at the players that are within that $7,000 to maybe $7,800 range, the players that you're going to need at least 1 or 2 of in your team, most of them outright look like losers. So now you start thinking, okay, well, if I take one, and even if he loses, if he can score me 20 points, which is 18 better than Jeremy Kimball, you can still win as long as the other 5 players are doing really good. So when you look at this team...
What's the most lopsided fight on this card?
Well, odds-wise, it's Angela Hill versus Jessica Andrade. Jessica Andrade started out as a minus 180. She is now as high as minus 475.
Really? Should it be that high?
I don't think it should be that high, but I do think that she should be rightfully so the favorite. She's the better fighter. She's in the higher level of competition.
Is it a quick finish fight, or is this she's going to win by decision fight?
Well, it's interesting you say that because at 115 pounds for women, there's not exactly the highest finish ratio. But when you look at Jessica Andrade, this is a girl that competed largely at 135 pounds in her career. She drops down to 115. That's a 20-pound weight cut. The questions are, well, how is she going to look at this weight class? She goes out there and she destroys Jessica Panay, who had fought for the UFC title and lost, but she was a title challenger. She buzzed through her get that finish. She then fights Joanne Calderwood in her follow-up fight. Calderwood's a top 5, maybe top 10 fighter, certainly very durable and certainly established within the division. Andrade goes in there and she smokes her as well. So now she's being pegged as... She's going to be able to take Angela Hill's back. She's going to be able to submit Angela Hill. We know with Angela Hill, who's a Muay Thai fighter out of New York, is that she might have had some troubles in the grappling exchanges, that part of the game in her career. So Andrade looks to be a big favorite. She certainly is on paper. I believe she's the highest. She is the highest.
Yeah, $9,300.
Exactly. And listen, I would try to fit her on my cash game or my GPP if I thought I could. Unfortunately, at $9,300, she's just far too expensive. Can she go out there and get the first round finish? Yes. But can Angela Hill keep her away, make it interesting, and last a couple of rounds? Sure. So I don't feel the need that I have to have Andrade.
Could you put Hill on a cash game team only because you think she can survive? It's a 5-round fight, I'm guessing?
No, 3-round fight.
So this isn't the main event?
No.
Okay, so it's a 3-round fight. Can she survive the 3 rounds? Because if she does, you could put her on a cash team.
Well, the tough thing here is that Angela Hill's a girl that was on The Ultimate Fighter, actually. She appears on The Ultimate Fighter, and she's the youngest, least experienced fighter in the entire cast. So that was a particular season where they seeded all the fighters among coming in. She was the number 16 seeded girl in the house, but once again, very green. She has to fight the number 1 seeded Carla Esparza. She obviously loses. After that, the UFC brings her into the fold, and she comes up short against Rose Namajunas, another top-rated contender. So she loses to the best girls, but then they release her from the organization. She's gone to Invicta FC, which is kind of their sister promotion, their feeder league. They produce the best women that the UFC eventually will sign under contract. She goes there and she wins the title, and she looks good. And she goes 5 rounds twice. So she's got a great gas tank. She could go 3. The issue is she's not fighting the same level of opposition position in Invicta that she has been in the UFC. She's obviously struggled at the UFC level, and there's no denying that. And Jessica Andrade is probably the number one contender, if not one of the top 3 best girls at 115. So this is one you have to stay away from. And then when you look at the other players, it's like, okay, well, Hill's cheap, and I'm staying away from her. Volkan Ozdemir, he has to drop 35 pounds in 2 weeks to even have this fight. He's taking it on short notice. He walks around at 240. He was supposed to fight 2 weeks ago at 240. The fight gets canceled because his opponent gets a staph infection. UFC calls him. Now he's to lose 35 pounds and come down. OSP is much better on the ground. If he takes him down, he's going to wash him. Felice Herrig,
Is there a
Beck
chance
Rawlings,
that
Chris Grutzmeier.
Is there a chance that fight doesn't go off, like it gets canceled on Friday?
What I think is the more likely situation is that Ovince St. Preux has spoken in the past that he would fight at heavyweight if he was to be offered a heavyweight fight. But because it's so thin at 205, they need him at 205. And he would be a very small heavyweight, so they don't particularly need a guy like that at heavyweight at this current time.
But he would come up and say, I don't care, give me half your purse and we're good to go?
Yeah, well, I would if I was Uzmir and I was really having a tough time making the cut, I think I would just call his camp and say, do you want to just fight at 215 or 220? I'm sure OSP would take it. Give him the 20% of the purse. The worst thing you can try to do, though, is black out trying to cut 35 pounds in 2 weeks. It's unhealthy, it's unsafe. And it's important to note that this is a guy that's fought stateside twice. 1-1, didn't have a good record when he was fighting in the U.S., and that was in 2013 when he was signed to Bellator. Since then, he's only fought a handful of times. He's super inactive, and he's a Swiss kickboxer. He's had his biggest faults when he's on the ground. There's no doubt he's developing. He's 27. But how much can you develop when you fight 3 times in 3 years? Probably not all that much. OSP is a guy that played linebacker for the University of Tennessee D1 football. He's
an athlete.
He's an athlete. On top of that, he's tough as nails. He's been fighting in Strikeforce since, I think, back in 2010. That's 7 years of high-level MMA that he has under his belt, and he's succeeded at a high level to this point. He fought John Jones. He went 5 rounds with John Jones. So whereas Volkan's best shot here is maybe I can land that lucky punch. Not lucky, but maybe I can land that shot. Jimmy Manuwa did in the last fight. But once again, you're betting on that slim margin that maybe he catches him, and that's just not enough for me.
So if we're going to go cheap for the cash game team, where'd you go?
Okay, so for my personal cash game team, where I ended up trying to save some money is initially I want to go with Ricardo Ramos, $7,600. He's been on 2 seasons of Dana White looking for a fighter. The first one, or looking for a fight, I suppose it's called. The first time around, he was the heavy favorite. He's coming in here. He ends up getting caught in the first round. It's a fun fight. It's thrilling, but he shows that he's still only 20 years old at the time, and believe he gets caught in a guillotine choke, is forced to submit. Moving on from that, they go and I think he wins one on the regional. They see him back on the most recent edition of Dana White looking for a fight. And right away, Dana recognizes him and says, hey, that's that kid. That's that kid that we thought we might sign the last time around we saw him, but he's a little bit green. He comes into this spot and he looks fantastic. He's very, very, very aggressive. He's well-versed standing, well-versed on the ground. And because he's only now 21 years old, pace doesn't seem to be an issue with him. He can really push the pace, and he's very dangerous. My issue is I think that his opponent, Tanaka, is going to be able to take him down, going to be able to control him, and therefore he won't score a whole lot of points.
But he won't get finished.
He shouldn't get finished, and at $7,600...
If we can get 30 points out of him, we might be fine for a cash game team?
Yeah, for a cash game team. Now, once again, he's going to have issues if he gets taken down. He obviously has 0-point score because this is his UFC debut, but he's someone that, when you look at Tanaka came into the UFC, and he was kind of a highly touted prospect, good BJJ background, was training at a high level in Japan. He comes over and he takes on Roland Delorme, local Canadian guy, fights in Calgary, and he beats Roland Delorme. That was in 2012. Since then, I think he's gone 1-3, 2-2, I think 1-3. His win is over Joe Soto, which was a split decision victory. Joe Soto took the fight on a week's notice, and Tanaka completely gassed out in the 3rd round and was this close to getting finished by Joe Soto.
So you think Ramos could win here?
I think Ramos could win here. And on top of that, if he does win, he'll put up a good performance. The issue is the way Tanaka fights is if Tanaka beats you,
he slows you down and makes you do nothing.
He's going to blanket you for 3 rounds. He's going to take you down. He's going to hold you down. You're going to try to get up. He's going to try to get some advantage positions. He himself in a victory is not going to score overwhelming a lot. But when you look at Ricardo Ramos for $7,600, he's young, he's agile, he's fast, he's got a better finishing rate, and I think in 9 pro wins, he's finished 8 of them. So he's shown that propensity to get the finish. Do I think he finishes Tanaka? Not necessarily. But if you put him into hot water and you make him think about it, bank some early rounds in, then he can get the nod. And for $7,600, I need a cheap player. Let me tell you, I like him better than the other options.
And it sounds like if there is a chance that he wins, there's a chance he could finish. Well, we're putting him on our cash game team because he's cheap and we need someone who's cheap. It sounds like you could use him in GPPs too.
I ended up using him in a GPP as well because, once again, $7,600. I thought I had a different strategy for cash game. I was going to avoid the $7,600 players whatsoever. Take someone who's going to slump and not do well. But once again, when you look at the people below him, he's at least got a higher ceiling.
How dare you talk poor of Beck Rawlins?
Beck Rawlins.
Or Adam Milstead.
Adam Milstead is a guy that with a shot as a cheap player. He's a guy with a shot. The issue is that he's fighting at heavyweight. He himself is only about 230 pounds. His opponent is 265 pounds, meaning on fight night he'll have at least 40 pounds of advantage on him. And the way Adam Milstead fights is, I'm either going to knock you out or you are going to knock me out.
Well, it sounds like we should either have him or whoever he's fighting on some teams.
Milstead is cheap, he's good, and yes, if you're going to play multiple lineups, put him on. Curtis Blades is a little too expensive, and I think there is some risk with him, being that he's 1-1 in the UFC. He hasn't looked overwhelmingly good. I do fully expect him to get the win here, but I did not play Curtis Blades. Yeah, I thought about Milstead, I really did, but on a GPP, I thought maybe I can go with a better option. On a cash game, he ain't no cash play.
So what is the rest of the cash game? Where's the lock for a win at the top?
Lock of the win at the top is Lexa Grasso, $9,100, Mexican fighter, very young. As I talked about Invicta, she was the champ in Invicta. And not only was she the champ, she's looking awesome in Invicta. She's beating highly touted challengers like Jody Escobar and Inoue, and just looking fantastic the whole way through. As I mentioned, young, versatile, agile, good striking acumen. She comes to the UFC, She comes to the UFC, and right off the bat, she gets Heather Jo Clark. Now, Heather Jo Clark is very, very, very durable. But Heather Jo Clark, a little slow, a little plodding, stays in the pocket with you. If you're good, if you're fast, if you've got the goods, then you'll go out there and you'll have a good performance against her. If you're not quite up to snuff, Heather Jo Clark can give you a lot of troubles. Heather Jo Clark never gave her a single trouble the entire time. She got completely busted up. Her face was destroyed. She was not in that fight pretty much at any point. Conversely to that, Heather Jo Clark fought Felice Herrig in the UFC as well and beat her, because Felice Herrig's just not up to snuff, but with Grasso she is. $9,100. The thing with Herrig is she's very durable. And Grasso's last fight with Heather Jo Clark, her only fight in the UFC, went the distance. She scored, as you can see, 67.5 points in that decision. Heather Jo Clark is known for that durability. She's known for that ability to go into a fight, and even if it's a fight she's losing, sticks it out to the end. Very hard to put away. Even though Felice Herrig's durable, she's a very pretty girl. She's more of a finesse fighter. If you put that same punishment on her, I don't doubt that she gets put away. And above all else, I don't think that there's really many ways for Felice Herrig to win this fight other than get it to the ground, control it on the ground. That's a tough task over the span of 15 minutes. So I'm definitely going Grasso. $9,100. I'm down to pay it. I think that she can get the finish, but above all else, she should be a lock for 75, 80 points.
Okay, next.
Moving on, Chaz Skelly. Chaz the Scraper Skelly taking on Chris Grits Grutzmacher. Chaz Skelly's a guy that, if you want to talk about growth since his UFC debut, this guy's got it. I mean, he loses in his debut against Mirsad Bektic, but he showed all types of promise. The fact is that he's a junior college All-American, and he's I believe, a brown belt in BJJ. And early on in his career, you're seeing all this grappling. He's trying to get the guys to the ground. He's trying to grind them. He's called the Scrapper for a reason. But then you start noticing this guy's starting to get some striking skills. Now, he plateaued for a little bit, and he's from Texas, which is where the card's coming from, so he's going to be the hometown guy. But he plateaued for a bit in his career. And as a result, he was with Team Takedown, which was a Texas-based team. He left Team Takedown. And here's the weird thing about Takedown. They've got to deal with you. They'll sign you. They'll pay for your food. They'll pay for your supplements. They'll pay for your training fees. They'll pay for all of that. But they got to cut of whatever you make. So you're betting against yourself, essentially, that you're never really going to make it to the top, because why would you want to split 20% or 30%? Or it's a big amount once you get to the top. Johnny Hendricks was with Team Takedown. He got to the top. Once he got to the top, he was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Left Team Takedown. Things weren't the same for him. Skelly got out early. Skelly got out and he went to the Black Zillions, and now he just spent some time in Florida. But damn, is this guy making some improvements? Still very young. His striking has gone a long way. We've seen that against Emilson Souza. A fight he doesn't look particularly good in the early rounds. Gets some hands on him, he puts this guy down. Maxwell Blanco, he gets his hands on him. He can hurt him with strikes. He can hurt him with his red-hot submission game. Even that fight with Jim Ehlers, just his ability to walk through the fire, walk through the pocket, and deliver that right hand, almost at will. He's improving all over the place. The issue with Grutzmacher is Grutzmacher was on The Ultimate Fighter, and I thought he would do pretty good on The Ultimate Fighter. Now, I was big on this guy because he had beaten guys like UFC veterans John Gunderson and Rolly Delgado. But in hindsight, that's just me being a super fan. Those guys aren't up to snuff. They're not fighting in the UFC anymore, and they're not that level. So maybe I gave Grutzmacher a little too much. But he gets on The Ultimate Fighter, and he loses to Artem Lobov. Now, Artem Lobov is a 145-pounder. Fights in the UFC now, rightfully so, at 145 pounds. But Lobov put some hot hands on this guy, and I'll tell you what, his game plan, he's an Arizona guy, where you're going, from the MMA lab in Phoenix. He likes to use his wrestling. He likes to grind on you. His nickname's Grits. That's what he wants to do. But you can't do that against Skelly. His wrestling's better than yours. His jiu-jitsu's better than yours. If this is forced to stay standing, his striking's better than yours. And I just saw you got knocked out by a 45er. He did win one fight in the UFC since then, Abner Laveras. It was a decision. It wasn't particularly pretty, and the UFC never booked him again after that. So there's a lot of question marks if you're Grutzmacher. Meanwhile, Skelly's looking red hot. His last fight was he finished in 20 seconds. So sign me up for Skelly.
All right.
And in fact, when you look at Skelly at 8,800, not the worst thing to try to get him on your GPP as well, because he's got all the abilities to get that finish.
Michael Vick's brother, James Vick, at 8,100.
Yeah, well, first of all, we got Dennis Bermudez, actually.
okay.
Yeah, but Dennis Bermudez is the night's headliner. He's taking on the Korean Zombie. It's 5 rounds. As I tell you every time, I love 5 rounds, especially if I think they have a propensity to go those 5 rounds. We thought that Yair Rodriguez would go 5 and just kill BJ.
That's great, though.
Yeah.
That's even better.
But instead, he goes in there and he gets a second round finish. We thought Shevchenko would go the 5 and, beat up Pena in those later half. She goes out there, she gets a second round finish, right?
By the way,
I'm thinking that Dennis Bermudez goes and beats him up over 5. But if he finishes him the second, do not be surprised, not because of the history, but just because he has finishing abilities as well.
All right, so James Vick then.
Yeah, James Vick.
Who is James Vick?
James Vick is known as the Texecutioner because he's from Texas.
Are we just
local
taking,
Texas
we're
boy.
stacking Texas guys here?
Mostly, yeah. Well, they're not traveling very far to have to get home, right?
Is anyone going to order this pay-per-view?
It's not a pay-per-view. Are you kidding me?
Okay.
You're out of your mind.
Well, I mean, it's in the same city as the Super Bowl on Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah, so why would anybody...
Like, is anyone even going to this?
I mean, listen, if I was there, I would. And will I be watching it? Of course.
Yeah, I know you will, but people traveling to the Super Bowl, they're probably just going to do Super Bowl stuff.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Super Bowl's on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And this is on Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how much is a Super Bowl ticket?
A couple $1,000.
Right. I'm assuming you get a ticket for this for $50. So I think there's a lot of people that would go. I don't know this for sure, but maybe you can elaborate. But I think there's a lot of people that go to the host city that don't have tickets. They just want to bring in the atmosphere.
Not a ton, and most of those are like media members or corporate people who are there to speak on something. I doubt there's, maybe I'm wrong on this, but I doubt there's a lot of people that are just like, yo, I'm a Pats fan. I don't have tickets. I'm just going to go hang in Houston. I don't know if that happens all that much.
You know what? You could be right, and you would know better than me. But I think that would be surprising because I would think a lot of people would be like, "Oh man, the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl." Obviously, they're not. But let's just say, for an example, the Green Bay Packers are there. We want to go. Well, how much are tickets? Far too much for our price range. But how about we road trip down there? We tailgate outside the arena. We go to a little bar. We watch it afterwards, and then we party.
I mean, the tailgate atmosphere at the Super Bowl is basically non-existent
Because there's no home team.
Yeah. And I would
But isn't it just a big party?
Kind of, but I would think that if you're, let's say, a Packers fan in this example, and they were playing in the game and you didn't have tickets, you'd save yourself the money by not going, and you'd be able to watch the game wherever you're from with all the Packer fans.
Could be.
Instead of just going and be like randomly hanging out at a bar where you don't know where people are going to be.
I guess, but if you're getting all your buddies down, well, we're going down. Who knows?
Like,
in this case, I'd say if people are in Texas to watch the Super Bowl, and it's, what do we do on the Saturday night? Oh, UFC's in town.
Resting up for the Super Bowl.
Also,
it's a long day.
Also, if I had $3,000 to shell out for Super Bowl tickets, and someone was like, "Do you want to go watch the main card of this UFC?" and it cost you
$50,
5%, 4% of what you paid for your Super Bowl ticket, why not?
I guess so. It seems odd to me.
James Vick. James Vick is absolutely massive for 155 pounds. I believe he's 6'3". He wears all of it. Now, he's a former pro boxer, and that's the biggest thing for him is that when you go out there, he's got, I believe, a 76-inch reach, and he uses every inch of it. Big jab, big right hand. He'll set it up, hit you. And even though he's a guy that hasn't really knocked out a whole lot of guys, you can feel his power every single time he gets in there. The other thing is, because he's so tall, he's got this massive leverage that he can use to his advantage. Most notably, when you try to push him up against a cage, or when you try to shoot a double leg takedown on him, hell, even a single if you keep your head to the outside.
Punch you in the face?
No, he'll grab your neck and stretch himself out. He's so tall, you're usually not all that tall in comparison. He gets a bite on your neck, he'll put you out. And we've seen him do it twice in the UFC, Ramsey Nijem and Jake Matthews. Both fights he was the underdog in. He nailed that patent to guillotine choke. Aside from that, he's known for his boxing. So his last fight against Beneil Dariush, Dariush is a black belt on the ground. He's a very good striker. Vick goes out there and he loses. He took it on relatively short notice. He gets caught. He ends up getting knocked out. Not that big of a deal in the sense that he's taken 8 months off. He's cleared the cobwebs. He's taken his time to get ready for this fight. He had another fight on this card fall off, right? Abel Trujillo also had a fight on this card against Evan Dunham fall off. So the logical booking was just match them up together, right? Abel Trujillo's 5'8". So everything that 6'3" lends to you in your game is going to help out massively so against this guy. I believe he has a 6-inch reach advantage on him, which I think he'll use. I do believe him to be the better pure grappler. And if Abel Trujillo's game plan is go in there and take him down, shoot takedowns, it's going to be a long night, and you're going to leave your neck out there, and you're going to be susceptible for that guillotine choke. Now, people look at Abel Trujillo, and they think he's on a 3-fight winning streak. Wrong. 3 fights ago, actually, he got choked out. Clayson Tebow took his back. Clayson Tebow choked him out. Gleison Tebow turned out to be on steroids.
So they gave him the win?
They gave him the win. But it's important to note that this guy can get caught. He's been caught many of times. If you look at his regional career, he gets caught left, right, and center against guys that are not on his level, like Alonzo Martinez, for example, is able to catch this guy. And since he's been in the UFC, he's just developing. But he's giving up a whole lot of size here. He's giving up, I believe, a lot of experience. And he does have path to victory, no doubt. But for the price, first of all, and even the money line's basically a pick 'em near even, I want James Vick all day.
All right, last person on the team.
Alex Morono, the great white. So you said that we like taking guys from Texas. Alex Morono is the local Texas boy, 2-0 in the UFC. Once again, he's a guy that gets brought in to lose. He gets brought in at UFC 195 against Kyle Noak. He's the underdog. Let's go back before that. He takes a Texas regional. He's from Texas, so he's the hometown guy. But he takes on an Ultimate Fighter veteran, a guy that Valdir BB Monster Arroyo, who's been around the high level for a long time. Now, Arroyo's a black belt. This kid's only a purple belt at the time. Arroyo takes him down round 1, but can't do anything. Takes him down round 2, but can't do anything. Morono's down 2 rounds at this point, so he knocks BB Monster out completely. Kid's got a lot of resolution. Kid's got good grappling defense at the very least, and he just swings wild bomb standing. It's not pretty to look at, let me tell you. But it's effective in the sense that it lands every so often, and when it does, it makes you pay. He makes his UFC debut against Kyle Noak. He's relatively short notice. Noak's the favorite. Noak's the better fighter all around, right? Wrong. He ends up outworking Noak. He gets a split. It's a close fight, but he outworks him. He's so unbelievably gassed during the fight because it's on short notice, but he trucks forward the entire time. Follow-up deck, he gets James Muntasiri. Once again, Muntasiri, the favorite fighter. James Muntasiri is a Taekwondo black belt. He won a bronze medal at the Pan American Games. He helps Anderson Silva with his Taekwondo on occasion. The guy should be, at least on paper, better fighter than Morono, right? Wrong. Morono outworks him. That's what he does. He
grinds.
He likes dirty fights. He likes to go in there and just make this a competitive battle. And then so when you look at his opponent and you think, hey, Nico Price is a guy that has been spectacular on the regional scene where he's known as a finisher. But it's important to note, Pat, he finishes very quickly. So what does he look like over the course of 3? Well, we don't quite know yet.
So he's the Cody Saftic of MMA fights?
He makes his UFC debut at UFC 207, the card that I was at in Las Vegas. He takes on Brandon Thatch. Brandon Thatch is asthma. All you got to really do is take Brandon Thatch into the second round. He's done. He takes a beating standing, first of all. Brandon Thatch is landing good knees, good kicks, good shots. He's not really in the fight standing. But he completes one single takedown against Thatch, who certainly now is wheezing from the asthma. He takes Thatch, he keeps going for the head and arm choke, eventually gets a good bite on one of them, taps Thatch out. So I take that exact example. And the kid took the fight on 2 weeks' notice. He gets on the mic and he says, put me back in there short notice again. I like this. Well,
now he's back a month and a half later?
Wishes come. No, it wasn't even a month and a half.
Now.
Yeah, exactly. He's in a month and a half later, but he didn't know he'd be fighting a month and a half later. He's only known about this fight for, once again, a week or 2. So you're going to get a short notice version of him. The thing is that we know he's a potent finisher, and we know in his UFC debut he can finish, and we know he doesn't look that bad on short notice. But he's always finished very early, and at the very least, Alex Morono does not get finished early. He can hang around for a long time. I think that's the key to victory here. I think Morono just takes him to deep water, lands those shots. The crowd's cheering because he's the local Texas boy. If Nico Price lands the takedown, I'm not as worried as I was with Thatch. Thatch has no grappling defense. I see what Morono can do. In fact, he trains out of Gracie Baja Woodlands in Woodlands, Texas. His grappling's fine. His striking's not refined, but I think it should be good enough to just outwork Nico Price over the course of 3. It's a close fight, but when I look at a price tag of $8,000 on a card that I need some cheaper players, he's the guy for me.
All right, let's switch to the GPP team. What you got the same, what you got different?
Okay, well, we're going to start off with Alexa Grasso. That same thing, $9,100.
Right.
She's super safe. She's going to put she's going to put the volume on her, and I think she'll score a lot. Tisha Torres. Now, let me just first and foremost say with Tisha Torres, not a great GPP pick. I'll tell you why. She's 7-1, so she's had 8 fights inside of the UFC. She had 3 exhibition fights on The Ultimate Fighter. Then you date back, say, her last 5 amateur fights, okay? That's 16 fights. Her last 16 fights have all gone to decision. All of them. All 16 of them. She does not finish. She does not get finished. Now, when you see her fight, it's not that she doesn't have any power. She's got power. She's super fast. They call her the Tiny Tornado, and for good reason. Sticks in your face, kickboxing background, and just very, 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 very fast. But it's all about putting it together. So we've seen her in some performances like Jocelyn Jones-Lybarger. She hurts Lybarger, the much bigger girl. She's on Lybarger. She's pushing the action, but she just can't get the finish. In her last fight, she didn't really push the pace all that much. As a result, she loses a really close decision that pretty much everybody thought she won, but it goes against her. I don't expect her to get a finish here, but we've got a couple things going for us. Number one, She's going to have that punch output. She's going to win all 3 rounds. I don't think she gets in trouble. I think she's very, very quick. I think she's very safe. I would have tried to get her on my cash game team, but she's around the same price as Grasso, and I think Grasso's got a little bit of a higher ceiling. With Tecia Torres, she matches up perfectly against Bec Rawlings. Bec Rawlings is too slow for her. Tecia Torres can just dance around the perimeter, land the strikes. She's working at American Top Team. She has been for the last number of years, and I know she's getting better. I know she's improving. She's just got to wait for that one perfect matchup, that one coming out party. I believe this to be that. With Bec Rawlings slow and plodding, as I mentioned, training at Alliance, they've got her sharp for her own standards. But I met this girl one time. I went to a seminar of hers, and the biggest takeaway that I took from it is that she wasn't an athlete in the slightest bit. She's a fighter. She likes getting in there and throwing hands, but she wasn't very athletic. When you look at Tecia Torres, who used to be a gymnast, she's very, very, very athletic and just very, very fast. But above all else, one little known thing is, as I mentioned with Tecia Torres, she had 3 fights on The Ultimate Fighter. They're considered exhibitions. She fought Bec Rawlings in an exhibition fight on The Ultimate Fighter no more than 2 years ago. It's scheduled for 3. But if you're up 2, they don't bother to go to the 3rd.
Yeah, don't get hurt.
Yeah, well, I mean, no surprise she was up 2 and they didn't bother to go to a 3rd. She danced around her. She styled on her. Bec Rawlings is big and strong. She'll try to get a takedown. But when that doesn't materialize, she's going to get eaten up. And the last thing on that is Bec Rawlings is known for her toughness. Her last fight was Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt, not known as a power puncher, not known as a finisher, really for the most part. Now, yes, it was a flying switch head kick, but she knocked Bec Rawlings out, and I don't think a lot of people saw that coming. I don't think it's crazy to think that Tecia Torres can put the same pace on her, break her down, tire her out, take her into deep waters, drown her in deep waters. Sign me up for Tecia Torres. I know it's as expensive, and I know 66.5 points is what she averages, and that could be exactly what she scores here.
Well, here's the thing. The way that you've just described it to me is that it's very unlikely that she's going to get a finish in the first round. Just
very unlikely.
Very unlikely.
Possible, but very unlikely.
But with the way that she scores points, like you say, by dancing around and piling up some significant strikes, that it might be better for us, at least, if she gets a late second round finish or early 3rd round finish, pile up those safe points, then get the bonus for the win already. Because as we've been seeing with the new DraftKings scoring, is that's better than winning in 4 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. The punch output that you put on, and that's the issue. If you put Grasso and you put Torres, and then they both go the 3 rounds, and they both score 70 points.
Especially if they can pile...
140 between the two is not enough. You need some finishes. So that makes me worried. But having both of them on there, I feel safe. I feel that they're going to score a decent amount of points, and I'm okay with playing it.
All right, you're sticking with Vic and Ramos for the GPP team. Who are the 2 new faces?
The 2 new faces are the Warhorse Khalil Roundtree. I don't like paying $8,500 for this guy whatsoever. And this is one where we're going to go against the local Texas guy, being Daniel Jolly, the werewolf of Texas, I believe his name is. So we'll start with Daniel Jolly. Daniel Jolly, not a 205er. Seems to be a pretty small guy. Seems like he can make 185 pounds. But he decides, hey, I'm not ready for the UFC. I'm a little green in my career. I think still only 8-0 at the time and hadn't had a marquee victory on his record. But the UFC signs him nonetheless. He takes on the local Toronto guy, Misha Cherkinov. Now, Misha Cherkinov, if you go to the ground with him, you're a dead man walking. And Jolly fancies himself a grappler, too. But sure enough, the fight ends up on the ground, and he's nowhere near Misha's level. Misha takes his back. Misha pounds him out. Fight's done in the first round. Jolly has now taken off nearly 2 years, something like 18 months off, 19 months off since that defeat to Misha Cherkinov. Where has he been at? I don't know. How good was he ever to begin with? We really don't know. What kind of level is he training at? Not the highest level, but we do know he's from Texas.
So the big thing here is that you're taking Roundtree despite the inflated $8,500 because you have no faith in Jolly?
It's not even that. Roundtree, you can flip a coin with him. If it lands heads, he's going to knock you out. If it lands tails, you're going to submit him, right? And that's the issue with him. If you look at 9.3 points scored, okay? Sadly, he's had 2 fights in the UFC.
So he's lost both.
He's lost both. The first time against Andrew Sanchez, routed, baby. Completely routed. I don't know that he scored anything. He got taken down every single time. Takedown defense is not all that good. His grappling defense is
so
really
Jolly
not
can
all
submit
that good.
him here quickly.
Yeah, 100%. Maybe Jolly's not the worst play in the world.
I was going to say, what's Jolly? Jolly's $7,700. So here's what I would...
You'd play him on a GPP if you were going to play him.
Yeah, of course. But this is the way that I would think about it. If I'm going to make, let's say, submit the cash lineup, submit the GPP lineup, but if I was going to play more and more and more and more, like you've thrown out a couple names now of some of these more scrub guys.
Jolly's not the worst play, man.
And it's not the worst idea. Like, you don't want to be all in on your lineup. Like, if you want to be all in on Grasso, that seems like a pretty decent idea to me. But if you want to get rid of, let's say, Roundtree, put on Jolly, you could upgrade Torres to Aubin St. Preux, and you might be looking a lot better.
Yeah, you could listen, absolutely. The more cheap players that you can afford on your team, the more that you're going to be able to open up the rest of it.
What's the best knockout on this card?
It could be Khalil Roundtree. That's why we're playing him on the GPP.
But you're best off playing the other side of it too if you're playing multiple lineups.
Yeah, because once again, it's more of a coin flip with him. Once you see him, he is built. He's very, very large. He is jacked. He goes in there to finish. He goes in there to finish quick. We've seen it on the regional scene. When he gets a hold of you, he'll knock you out. But it's when he himself is on the Ultimate Fighter. His first fight on the Ultimate Fighter to get into the house, a murderer. He gets up and starts soccer kicking the guy in the body, and the refs is like, oh my God, like, call this one off. The problem is in his very first fight in the house, he's fighting his buddy, the guy that he trains with. They went and tried out together. They both got in. They got matched up right off the bat.
You didn't want to hurt him?
Well, he talked about, like, oh, it's going to be hard to hurt him, but I'm going to go in there and hurt him. He goes in. He seems to be hurting him. Whether he takes his foot off the gas or he doesn't, I don't know. I don't care. The other guy, who had no experience, was 3-0, was not in his league, took him down, took his back, choked him out. Sad. Now they get an injury at one point. So they're like, well, we need to bring someone back. Let's bring back the big boy who throws heat, because if he doesn't get taken down, he's going to be a good time. Comes back. Wins one over Josh Stansbury. Josh Stansbury is huge and has a hell of a chin, and he wrecks Stansbury. Once again, showing that if he doesn't get taken down, he's actually pretty good. So that gets him in the finals, where he gets taken down. He's not so good. Now, just fast forward, that's his UFC debut. He's now signed to the UFC. They say, okay, we're going to give you one more. Give him Tyson Pedro over in Australia. Tyson Pedro's the local guy. But hey, you're more experienced. He trains out of Las Vegas full-time at Syndicate MMA. He's got great training partners. Let's see how you do. We played him on that GPP. He went out. He dropped Tyson Pedro. Pedro somehow discombobulated, got him down and submitted him. It was the most frustrating thing I've ever seen in my life. Anyways, that happened the last time, so I'm hoping the coin flips
the other way this time.
And he knocks Daniel Jolly out, probably in the first round.
But like you're saying, it's worth playing them both on separate teams.
Hell yeah. On separate teams, yeah.
No, obviously you're not going to play on the same team.
No, because someone's going to lose and someone's going to win.
Well, it's funny because there is a strategy to playing a high-end, low-end fighter from the same fight, especially if it's 5 rounds, if you think it's going to go to a decision on a cash team.
Yeah.
On a GPP team, it makes absolutely no sense.
No, you're basically
killed your ceiling.
You're just essentially killing your own team.
Yeah.
I think one time it worked out, and it was, I want to say TJ Dillashaw versus Dominic Cruz, because they scored both something like 80 or 90 points.
Yeah,
so
but
it was okay.
But that was an aberration, and no one did that anyway.
One guy I know did that, and he might have done it as a mistake. I don't know.
All right, so the rest of this team, I got Ramos, you got Vic, and you got Marcel Fortuna.
Yeah, okay, so we're basically defying GPP right here. You're going for it. Okay, well, Fortuna's going for it.
Well, here's the thing. Here's what you could do if you didn't want to change up this GPP roster and Fortuna's not a guy for you. You could take off Fortuna, put on Jolly. And then with Roundtree, who would you drop to $8,500 and below here?
$8,500 and below that I like?
For GPP, yeah.
Oh, I would put Dennis Bermudez. He's got 5 rounds to work with. I think he gets the job done. And he's not on our GPP.
So that's a way that we could do that.
Absolutely. But just to explain who Marcel Fortuna is and how he might have a chance on a GPP, which he... Once again, he doesn't have a huge chance. It's GPP, okay? So here's the thing with Anthony Hamilton. Anthony Hamilton, I'm very, very, very familiar with the freight train. He used to be the MFC champ up in Canada, right?
Is he Canadian?
No, he's from Seattle, Washington.
It's close enough.
Yeah, so
we'll claim him.
Claim him as their own. Big, big, big boy. 6'4", cuts down to 265 pounds on the most time. If he's in shape, I think he's 260. Brown belt in BJJ, wrestled collegiately. I think he's an All-American D3. Don't quote me on that, but he does have good wrestling credentials. I thought that he'd probably be pretty good coming into the UFC. The thing is that he's faltered massively at the UFC level. If he can just hold you up against the cage the entire time, he'll do that. If he can score a takedown and just kind of like sit on top of you, he'll do that.
So, he's not, even if you were considering taking Hamilton, he's not going to score.
No, not at all. He won't score at all. Traditionally, he hasn't scored at all. What's his average?
I don't even see his average here. I think I deleted it.
Oh, yeah, no worries. Regardless, he doesn't average a lot. He might get a couple points on the takedowns themselves, but they don't usually come. What happens is he gets an underhook, and then an underhook and an overhook, a 50-50 position, and just holds you up against the cage. He's so much bigger than you. But guys that can hang, guys that got some good skill set, they put it on him. Now, most notably, he gets knocked out when you're going to put it on him. Now, Todd Duffy knocked him out in approximately 7 seconds. It was like 27 seconds. Whatever it was, really fast. He gets clipped the one time and goes down. On top of that, Alexei Olnik, who has something like 39 submission victories, 3 knockouts, drops him. And then as he's on the ground, chokes him out. And then on top of that, his last fight against Francis Ngannou, we all know how good Frankie Murder is. He doesn't want to strike at all with Frankie Murder. So he just... this guy doesn't know how to grapple, doesn't know how to wrestle. I got a key to victory. He runs in. Basically, Ngannou just gets a hold of his arm and puts it in a Kimura. The thing with the Kimura is it doesn't work at the high level anymore because it takes a lot of muscle to use, and guys know how to defend it. Look how many guys land Kimuras over the last 10 events. It's a very small percent, and the guys that are tapping to it are not necessarily known for their grappling credentials. Francis Ngannou has been doing MMA, not even just grappling, just MMA as a whole, for 3 years. This guy's a brown belt, and he subbed him with a Kimura, seemingly relatively easy. What up with that? Marcel Fortuna is a second-degree black belt in BJJ. He's much better on the ground than Anthony Hamilton could ever dream to be. The issue is that he's never fought at heavyweight in his life. He's a light heavyweight. And at that, he's not even particularly a big light heavyweight.
So he's giving up a lot of weight here.
He'll be giving up about 65 pounds. And the issue is that the way Hamilton fights is literally going to be kryptonite to a guy like him because he needs the takedown, which is very hard to get against a guy twice your size who's a former collegiate All-American. You need the submission, which is no cakewalk over a brown belt.
Especially when a guy's so much bigger than you, too.
Yeah, and
I at least that's how I would imagine it.
And with most heavyweights, it's like, you know what? Take him into deep water, get him tired. It's like, Hamilton's actually got a good gas tank because he's used to just holding guys down for three rounds. He's got a good gas tank. So I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't really think Fortuna's going to win this fight. I certainly recognize there's a chance. But above all else for me, I've watched Anthony Hamilton fight 10 times, and I've come to the conclusion finally after 10 times, there's always something missing. What's wrong with him? Is he bad? Is he really that bad? He looks bad in a lot of these performances. No. He has virtually no ring IQ. He just seems to make a lot of poor decisions. And against a second-degree black belt, it only really takes one poor decision to get you a guillotine or an armbar or a triangle. Guess what? I've seen this guy just tap out to a Kimura. So it certainly is possible.
It's in play.
It's in play.
And for $7,500,
if he goes out there and gets a submission for $7,500, ooh, not a whole lot of guys are going to be playing him.
One of the big things that I do with most DFS sports is project out the ownership. So for the golf, I'm very accurate at predicting how much people are going to be owned, who the popular plays are going to be, the chalk plays. For football, baseball, it doesn't matter.
That can that get you in trouble?
No.
Not in like trouble like someone's going to be like, whoa, how are you projecting this? It's just I look at that Francis Ngannou fight from last week. He ended up being, I think, the most owned guy, and rightfully so. But then I hear a lot of people, now that they know the ownership, going in, you don't know the ownership. You're taking a guess at it.
But that's how you guess it.
That's how you guess it. Once they all discovered that he was the highest owned guy, all these guys are talking about, I wish I would have taken Arlovsky. No, you don't wish you would have taken Arlovsky.
No, you do, though. No,
knowing would throw you off.
No, but it would throw you off, but the people that are talking like that are people that are playing 50 to 100 lineups.
Yeah, which is, by the way, the way to make the real money.
It is the way to make the real money. So, game theory-wise, if 90% of people own one guy, it's worth having the other guy with whatever little shot that he has, just in case if he wins and the other guy loses, you've canceled out 90% of the field.
Well, I'll tell you what.
And that's what those extra lineups that you add are for.
In that case, it's just like you said, switch Jolly out, switch the lineup around.
But do you think those two will be popular to begin with?
Jolly and Fortuna, no. But people are going to realize real quick that they have to take some of these guys. So in their mind,
who out of these sub $8,000 guys? Like, I don't know. Like, I don't watch.
Okay, Milstead, like I said, I don't
watch enough MMA to know who's known by people, who's not known by people. But who is like the most public fighter of this sub $8,000 range?
Well, that's the glory for us. None of these guys.
None of these guys.
At least to the casual fan. But if you said Angela Hill, well, she's on that season of Tough. What'd she do beyond that? Nothing. She got cut. This is a return fight. Oh, Volkan Ozdemir. Well, he's supposed to fight for the Titan belt. That never happened. He's fought 3 times the last 3 years. This is his UFC debut. All right, never heard of him. Felice Herrig. People probably have heard of Felice Herrig, but once again, don't expect them to.
I have legit never heard any of these names. I'm sure we've talked about them on the show before. I just don't remember.
But for the most part, you got a lot of debuting fighters. Even the biggest name guy in the entire card, Chang Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, last fought 3 years ago. We weren't even doing a bookie beatdown 3 years ago.
That's a great name, Chang Sung Jung.
Chang Sung Jung.
I like it.
The Korean Zombie.
Is he good?
He's a zombie, buddy.
So he's hard to put away?
You have to put him away with a shot to the head, i.e. George Roop kicked him in the head and knocked him out. He's extremely... You know what? He goes out there and he just fights like a zombie, gets in your face, eats a supreme amount of punishment, and always keeps going. So maybe that's kind of why he got that zombie nickname, just his ability to take damage, wear it, and keep coming forward. But the last time we saw him fight, once again, 3 years ago, he dislocated his shoulder. It popped out of place. He's eating damage and trying to pop it back in place, seemingly unfazed. He is very much so a zombie. Thing is, because he's Korean, he had 2 years of mandatory military service. So he took a year off to help the
golfers
shoulder.
too.
Has it actually?
Yeah.
I found that interesting because I know there's a number of countries that do that, but you don't really see high-level athletes affected by it until I believe later. Like, I don't know that you can do it when you're 35, but he left when he was 27, and I feel like that's killing the prime of your career.
Yeah. It's happened to, who isn't on tour right now? They got a win, so they're exempt.
They're exempt for tournament or for military duty?
No, they won on tour, so they got exempt.
Yeah.
For like when you went on the PGA Tour, you get 2 years. You get 2 years of like a tour card.
Yes.
But he had to go do military service.
Yeah.
So they deferred his
2 years.
They deferred his tour card 2 years
cool.
for when he was done his service.
Cool.
He gets to come back and still have it.
The issue I'm having,
What the hell was it?
Especially
was it Rio.
Especially when I look at
you'll know.
Who's I forget who my big Korean golfer guy is.
Y.E. Yang.
Y.E. Yang is.
Y.E. Yang's like 50. It's not him.
Who's the best guy? Who's the best Korean golfer right now?
Byung-hun An.
No, definitely not him. Oh well, I can't forget.
Siwoo Kim.
I don't know. To be honest, I have trouble too because when I look at a lot of the Korean fighters, a lot of them have similar names. So sometimes you go, "Oh, that's my guy." No, not your guy. Not your guy at all.
So of all the top end people, then,
yeah,
who do you think will be the most owned?
Could be Korean Zombie, but I think that would be a big far stretch. I think the most owned guy might be Curtis Blades. He's $8,900, so he's not the most expensive player. And once again, when you look at the fact that he's so much bigger than Milstead, when you look at the fact that Milstead's live or die by the KO, and this guy can actually go a couple, and beyond all that, you ever seen a guy? Well, I guess you don't really watch fighting, but this guy hasn't fought in a little while since he beat Cody East anyways. It's not like he just fought.
How long ago was that?
A couple months.
Okay.
His stock just went up massively last weekend because of Francis Ngannou's win over Andre Arlovski. Bear with me. Curtis Blades fought Francis Ngannou.
And won?
Two fights ago.
And didn't get killed?
Pretty much. So Ngannou's had 5 fights in the UFC, right? First guy, he knocks absolutely unconscious in the second round, right? He's also got his win over Boyan, easy in the first round. Hamilton, easy in the first round. Arlovski this weekend, easy in the first round. Curtis Blades, I believe, was his second fight in the UFC. Blades comes from that collegiate wrestling background I talked about. He was like, I think he's from Illinois originally. He has his high school records for most pins, most wins. He's something like 98-15 for his high school at wrestling. Good high school wrestler. Transitioned that well into MMA. He takes Ngannou down. Unfortunately, Ngannou gets back up the first time, gets back up the second time.
How good is this Ngannou guy? Like, is he going to be the champ soon?
Because he's only 30 years old. That's what'll be his biggest key here is that the champion right now is Stipe Miocic, right? Stipe Miocic is 34. So in 2 years from now, Stipe's 36 on the back 9. Overeem, 36 now. Well, then he'd be 38. Kane, well, he's always injured, and now he's in his late 30s. Fabricio Verdum, he's going to be in his mid 40s at this point. Mark Hunt's going to be in his mid 40s. All of these guys are old, very old, because heavyweights you mature a lot later. He's 30.
So 30 is young for the division.
He's the third youngest guy in the roster at heavyweight. So I'm just really thinking in a couple years from now, these other guys are going to be retiring, and he's the young blood. He's the thing.
And you would have to think that you would say he's in MMA for 3 years.
He was homeless. He left Cameroon and moved to France and was homeless. And then one day was just like, oh, I think I could be a boxer. It's like, well, you're 6'4" and 255 pounds. Probably could be a boxer, but boxing is so unbelievably difficult. Like, don't expect anybody to just pick that up. So he tries boxing, and he's going to have a couple holes here and there. But his coach at the gym is watching him box. He's like, you mind trying some MMA? Like, I think you could be good. And he's just like, okay, I'll give it a go. His coach is like, I watched him practice like the second day. I was like, that guy's winning the title. Like, who's going to mess with this guy? His coach is like, well, when he first came in, he's a French guy. He's like, oh, when he first came in, he's like, we would box. I would, take him down, use some experience. He's like, that ended quickly. He's like, nobody can spar with him anymore. You get hurt. They bring in boxers now and judo guys and wrestlers and whatever, and he just wrecks them all. So people very much so like, apparently when you hold mitts for him, like your hands, you have arthritis already forming in your hands from just like blocking punches with mitts on.
That's when you need to talk to Phil Mickelson, get some of that Enbrel in you. Cure your arthritis up real quickly.
Go to Germany, get some stem cells shot up through you.
Oh yeah, boom,
the
centrifuge.
Exactly.
And that's where all the action's at. So,
but in Blade's case, he took those shots. He got dropped twice and got up. Nobody gets up from Ngannou's shots, and he got up. It got called off before it went to the third round. Second round ended. It got called off because his eye was completely shut. He could not open his eye. It was completely swollen shut. So the ref and the doctor were like, you can't see, you're done. But even then, he still wanted to continue. After that fight, he moved full-time to Denver, Colorado, trained at altitude. When you're 265 pounds and you got some gas in the tank, you're very, very dangerous. His opponent is a cruiserweight, what should be a cruiserweight. He's only about 230, 235, Ohio guy, originally from Pennsylvania. He can wrestle too, but he's just not as well-rounded. Blaydes has got a bit of a name because he fought Ngannou. He looked good against Ngannou, only in comparison to the other guys and how poorly they've looked. For 8,900, he will be played. He's a big guy. He can finish. He finished in his last fight. He's finished traditionally in his career. I'd expect Blaydes to be highly owned.
But we're not taking him.
We're not taking him. And likewise, if you play a GPP and you just play one GPP with a guy like Milstead, if Milstead does land those hands, and he can land those, he's a training partner of Stipe Miocic, who, as we talked about, is the current heavyweight champ of the world. He could land those. He's got 9 wins with 9 knockouts. If he does land on Blaydes, and Blaydes is the most owned guy, and you've got a GPP who has a punt play with Adam Milstead, who's very cheap, you're looking damn good.
Yeah, and that would be where knowing the ownership comes into play.
Yeah.
And it's things like that.
And that's why
you would game theory your way
Oh, yeah.
off of play. Now, I don't know if it's going to be Blaydes. We should start tracking this. And I might talk to a couple of the other MMA writers as well who cover DFS full time, see what they're saying about ownership levels and just even talk to them about the game theory of that. But it'd be interesting to be able to project out, because in MMA, you can only make so many teams.
Yeah, you
so
put
guys
out
are
an
gonna...
interesting article. I think it was you that posted it, and it was about how to make your lineup different than other lineups.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's extremely important. The only way to win those big GPPs is you're fielding multiple teams. And I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but as a random example, if you happen to have Adam Milstead, Marcel Fortuna, and that Daniel Jolly, they all win and they get finishes, none of them are really owned. Now you have all the money in the world to take the safer picks. That's how you end up winning. It's just no one seems to, why would you want to field a team like that? If you're fielding one team, don't do it. The percentage of that hitting is so low. But at the end of the night, when you're like, what? How did
this guy have this team?
Yeah, because he played multiple teams and one of them happened to be that team, right? You can get 550 points and still not finish in the top 10. It's tough. But that being said, you just hope that everybody gets a good finish, has a 100-point night, and you're good.
And I will say that if you're using the lineup that we're giving out on the show, the GPP lineup, and you're playing it in a big tournament, you might want to change at least one guy on it. There's going to be like 20 people that have the same lineup. So even at the time that we did win the GPP, 18 people won?
Yeah.
That sucked.
Yeah, well, hey.
It was good. Hey, listen, it was a good lineup. I'm happy for the money I got. But I would have preferred like the $2,000 instead of like the $400.
Yeah. Well, hey, kudos to the people that actually play it. But I'm just giving out advice. People can craft their own team however they want. I'm just seeing where there's some value and where there's some stayaways and trying to, go by that.
Jealous I'm 100 spots ahead of you in the Toutmaster Pick'em?
Yeah, considering there's only like 200 people in it. I am very much so jealous. Early season.
Nope, this is how it's going to go. That's how it's going to go. I'm going to stay inside the top 15. I'm going to use my knowledge. Hey, if there's one thing I'm good at, whether or not I know anything about MMA, I don't. That's not the point. I'm good at disseminating information for people who do know about it. So I get the people who know who tell me. I work through it all. Boom, we got winners.
I think a back-to-back 9-point weeks, which I've averaged it from last season. If you're scoring 9 to 10 points every week, you are going to be fine. But you will shit the bed at some point and score 5 points. You got to minimize those crap nights, maximize those good nights as much as you can. I think there's only 35 events this year.
That's better for me.
Way better for you.
Narrow down the field.
You're doing good so far, but I'm coming back for my lead.
We talked last week about how we recorded a second part to an interview about Ronda Rousey, about the UFC business, some stuff about the union that may or may not, it wasn't even called the union, it was like the workers, whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever that is.
Yeah.
That go away yet?
No, kind of though, but no. Speaking of Ronda Rousey, I don't want to date this show, but it's actually her birthday today.
Yeah.
More importantly, though, it's Bill the Butcher Mahood's 50th birthday, and I don't know why people are talking about this Rousey thing. What's up, Bill Mahood? But here's the thing with the MMA Association. They went out with this Bjorn Rebney, right? Bjorn Rebney was a former...
You explained this all on that show that's going to come out next Tuesday.
Right. former president of Bellator Fighting Championship. Basically his baby, his brainchild, crafts this organization. They pull the rug from under him. He's got a really, really, really poor reputation in MMA. That's just the facts. Poor reputation for him. He was their spokesperson almost. They had a crew of fighters, but he was their spokesperson, right? He goes out there and he's the one that's more or less being the face of the organization. And that caused a lot of people to get turned off by it. Be like, you know what? I know that guy. I don't like him. I find he's a scummy character. I don't want to get involved. So I think when they were reaching out to other fighters, a lot of these fighters were either, I had a personal dealing with him, my teammate had a personal dealing with him, my gym had a personal dealing with him. Not a lot of guys want to jump on board. Now, beyond that, you get what people are calling crybaby fighters, but these are the elite guys, and these guys mean something to the sport. But important to note that Tim Kennedy, the second spokesperson for them, well, he gets routed in Toronto and then retires thereafter. Donald Cerrone, he says, I don't even know what I'm doing here. I didn't really have any information. I just showed up to the meeting. It's like, okay, but he just lost this weekend too. Cain Velasquez, once again, he was saying, I don't know what's going on here. He pulls out because he's got to get another surgery. He hasn't even fought yet. Career always uncertain for that guy. TJ Dillashaw is the only guy that's really doing it. He won at UFC 207. And he was another guy that said, I might have made a poor decision by joining on with these guys because now the UFC is going to blacklist me out of potential opportunities. They're all recognizing, shit, what was I doing? But yet, it's going to be around for a little while longer. It's just if it had steam, the steam's definitely digressed.
Anyway, we talk more about that. We talk more about where the actual money behind the UFC is going now.
Not to the fighters.
Not to the fighters, yeah, and how that could potentially be rectified. But anyway, that drops Tuesday morning up on the Fantasy Sports Network YouTube page and on Podomatic and on Audio Boom, iTunes for the audio version. If you want to check that out, as you can check out this show. Always, the audio version is up.
And if you're a fan of the show and you reside in Arizona, you can catch Pat Mayo at the local Reserve Casino playing some Baccarat.
You don't roll the dice in Baccarat. You bet on playa or banker or egalite.
Have a good time, buddy.
I will have a great time. We'll be back next week with UFC 208. That's next week?
Yes.
Boom. We'll be back with picks for that. I will be back by then. So good luck this week. Win some cash. I'm rooting for you. I'm rooting for myself a little bit more. But you too. We can all share in the winnings, especially with that cash game lineup. Good luck. I'll see you next time.